freeze-dried crickets we is. We dry out a little bit. We will reconstitute in the spring rains. I'll get it out. It's just because we is. That's who we're crickets. That's all we're going to do. We don't really listen really close. We're content where we are. We like to be plugged into comfort. So do I, but that's not going to help us. As we continue along the paddling the wrong direction up the stream, heading to the waterfall, in lots of different ways. And I know I come on, and maybe people don't want to hear the negative attitude. I'm actually optimistic, because the answer is just as soon as you start all working on the right things, we start to solve this thing. And that's the optimism that I really am speaking to, whether anybody really hears what I'm saying. There's a way out of this thing, and there's lots of ways out. The main thing is that we involve ourselves in the proper place by the proper methodologies. And until we do that, we're going to be some desiccated old insect thinking we were enjoying ourselves. And the future that we leave, because at some point, as I think I'm realizing most of the people that listen to me are older people, we're out of here. And the little ones will have to be picking that up. And a lot of you are old enough to say good and good riddance. And I guess you can take that attitude. But then to pretend that you care, pretend that you're liberty-minded, if I can put it in those terms. Again, you use a slightly different terminology base. So, street language, I can use liberty. When we talk about the technicalities, I can't use liberty. When I'm speaking of being free, and again, free within the constraint of a reality, not a fairy tale. We aren't by ourselves individually on this place. And even if there was only a few of us, we'd interact at some point, and that interaction may not go so well, as history has shown us. And so we've established, when people start ganging up to beat up on other people, you end up starting societies by, even if you're just ganging up, that's a society. You live by your own formal rules. You can call it a tribe. You can embrace the new age idea of tribalism. Now that they're trying to foist it on us, you don't even understand. That's the new next statement. They want to get you all separate, thinking that you're separated and you're all actually under central control. Oh, we're doing everything for the tribe. That's another name for the hive, folks. The Borg. Your tribe will be plugged in. Silent Weapons, Quiet Wars will be plugged in to the other tribes in unity. And none of you will understand, and those that die from here on out and let the little ones pick it up won't have a clue what's happening to them. I mean, when I say that, my thought is maybe a record I'm doing in the future may show up to give a few the remnant, the clue, and the battle will continue. Otherwise, you're looking at all the sci-fi nastiness that they've been talking to you about, and your little ones are certainly looking at that. And we were all the answer at the time we were given this notice. And it's not like 30 years ago when I started, there was no way to connect up and information was hard to find. And worse, it was hard to surf, we didn't get to surf. It was hard to sift through the mass ignorance that was going on in honesty. People just didn't understand what they were up against, but realized something was terribly, terribly wrong. And then you could see the plants being put in. Then you could start seeing there was a problem going on if you really paid attention. And that's where I think if I have a strength that's there to see. I started to learn. You have to learn to discern is no joke. But that means I'm doing something. I'm learning. I'm actually working it out. I'm not claiming I know it. I'm not reading a ton of stuff and saying now I know it. There's a whole lot of realities that start coming along. This is not a thing where you can say, I know about this stuff. Now, I know myself a lot of things on what I know about. But there's a whole thing we're moving toward that I'm still working out myself. And I don't see many people helping themselves to learn those things at all. They go to a certain point and they stop. They think they know what's going on, and then they decide that that's not what they found is not worth addressing. And that's just like saying I'm agreeing to the oppressor. It's all I can tell you, folks. It's just that way. The optimistic side, or the actual true side of where we can go, is that we're pretty powerful when we set our mind to things and we focus. And we start to really start making the hard decisions on what's truly important. What sense is it to leave a future to little ones while you are just getting along to the next day and letting the oppressor set the place and the table for your little ones to move into? It doesn't seem logical to me, first of all, or reasonable. And yet this is what we do as a society. And whether you hear me and you listen but don't hear, one of the comments in the chats, I don't like to get too judgmental, just as a point of critique. I didn't say just to go downtown and work out with the government having to move anywhere. I didn't say get into office. Those of you that can is what I said you should. Those of you that don't like it but know that that's your best place, you should. Maybe there's some people that can't. It doesn't mean that you can't make a lot of phone calls or write letters and set a campaign not of frustration but of action. You don't have to really go anywhere today. You can be just as effective being on point and know what to do. Now, the rubber meets the road somewhere, but to say that I'm not going to, because I don't want to go downtown and deal with that, I'm not going to engage, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you find where you can be effective, because we don't know what the last straw on the camel's back will break it. Not that I'm into breaking camel's backs. So we always have these metaphors, I suppose. That's not a metaphor, but anyway, the words don't come sometimes. That's an example of a load that can't be overborne by somebody who wasn't paying attention. And you didn't, and then you let the system run itself down, and then you loaded it up until it broke. And now we have people that are running the system down and have broken it. The caucustocracy is ruling. I don't know why that's such a hard concept, that it needs to be stopped. And if you don't stop it, they will continue. There's no criminal in the world I've ever known. There's no oppression that's ever been held that didn't require correctly organized and executed mass of people to stop it. And now we're in a day which is very interesting, to be able to do this without really having to suffer a lot of bloodshed, if any at all. And I don't know why that's not a better parameter than everybody sitting back thinking as they get older that their eyesight's getting a whole lot more puny, that their ears can't see and their feet can't move so fast, that they think that they're going to use their Second Amendment to stop an oppressor. They never wanted to lift their finger in the first time to stop before it got to that point. And that's handed over to all your little ones. Only this time now that gun's not there, though it doesn't matter how fast they are, because their mind's been all screwed up because of all the other dynamics, that the multidimensional attack that was being put on the face of mankind.
BTWRLM 196.
So I always get off on my tabs. I want to start something a lot more fun. And I'm just not going to get too deep. It's not something to get too deep, except I do appreciate people that are creative. Videos in a neat medium to convey ideas. And I ran across something I just wanted to pass along. You'll find in the Blogcaster. You can find it when I give you the title. Fur Kids Kitty commercial pulls on Funny Bone. Just really enjoyed this video. Real neat little things they said in it. How they've executed it, real low. I mean, there's nothing high budget about this whatsoever. Probably part of the appeal. Neat little things they threw in. One of the phrases was, you're talking about a lot of cats to give away at a rescue house. You like black cats? We've got black cats. We've got the blackest cats you've ever seen. It's like midnight inside a coffin over here. And he's going into the corner where he's got a few black cats sitting on the shelf, and he's trying to find homes for all these cats. Now, I don't know where this guy is. Didn't look that close. Excuse me. I can see now the writing says it's in the local Atlanta Rescue Center. I think it's really a neat execution of a notice to people to go in and get take care of kitties if you can. It's not for everybody, but those that can. You don't need to make more. They'll make themselves quite a bit. But there's a rescue center for lots of kitties. The point was that we can unload. We can be pretty creative. I had to watch it a couple times. There's lots of little things that they throw in that you kind of miss a little bit, or you see it but you pass it by. That really kind of a kick about what they do. So anyway, I like to see fun stuff, and this was fun stuff to me. Maybe you can, if you see it, you'll see maybe part of the other side that I would like us to focus on this kind of stuff. Not the kiddies and not the rescue part, and not that there's a commercial, but that we can put our energies in lots of neat ways to bring ideas along to people. I wish I had a little bit of that talent here, but anyway, the title of the article is Fur Kids, Kitty Commercial Pulls on Funny Bone. It is pretty funny. It's only a few minutes, just like an ad type, maybe a minute and a half or so. So anyway, that's fun stuff, neat execution. I appreciated the different little angles he's putting on what he has to offer. Pretty nice display. It isn't the tug on your heartstrings or try to tug on your heartstrings type of video for adopting pets. So it's a lot better approach, I think. I would like to see a whole lot more of this. But anyway, moving on to the more, as we have to, the more serious stuff, in my mind anyway, and keeping our ability to address all of the problems and the things transparent to us and keep things straight as we go into the so-called fake news. And, this is just, as I said before, this is really not, you don't want to start out, I don't think anybody should argue the fake news. We just realize these are lies, these are deceptions, these are frauds upon people that are now called the press. Again, it's a color of authority that's interfering with you in substantial ways. In fact, if you look at the definition for terrorism, everybody could just put this deception that the government and the media is putting on you to coerce your political will. That defines terrorism. So I don't know why putting these elements together in the law is so hard. That we don't have, literally millions of people coming up and say, okay, you guys went wrong there. I'm going to take the bull by the horn, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to make an issue of this. And I'm saying that notwithstanding my knowledge about the corruption of the system and what most of the people that would listen to me would say, F the system. And I'm of the idea, after a long time, to say, we have a war that we're in, and you better look at that battlefield, and you better be engaged somewhere. What I have found is you can engage that enemy right inside the structure that's been established by showing how they can't fulfill what the law was supposed to say to identify them as the criminal in the position. You're not making an argument. You're making a finding of fact. This is in my mind, a totally different approach. And I haven't seen anybody really execute this quite right. As I've been, and I still continually learn to develop that. These people are amoebas. It's no joke that you put a pin in front of these people, an obstacle in front of them, they'll morph around the dang thing. This is not an easy objective when you're the only pin in the battlefield. Why I tell you I need more. It's kind of a selfish request. I can't do this by myself, and I don't speak just for me. It's my colleagues as well. There's 5 pins in the whole battlefield called the world, and the amoeba is easily at least avoids the problem. Can't tack it down. We got it identified. We just can't tack it down because there's not really a lot of help. And while I would rather do the kitty videos and doing that and having nice, neat concepts come out, the real important problem is we have to address how to keep our ability to see the truth, not because we're told, but we can readily discount the methodologies that would cause a falsity, and that then narrows down whether or not we can conceive that we are looking at a truth. That is, it seems to be this whole fake news fiasco plan, psyop, whatever. Get your mind thinking that there's something going on. It's really not about blaming alt media either. This is about confusing you completely and then getting through the fact that they are still lying. New questions arise about FBI probe into Russian election year hacking as it's revealed they never asked to examine the Democratic Party's server. Now, I have this problem too. FBI is not a they. FBI is an organization. There might be them inside the organization, but it's just an organization. It's an agency of the federal government. So it's not a they. It is not a they. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is an it. Okay, so generically in the public, in social justice warrior speak, it then has to be a zit, a neutral, non-male, non-female. It's a zit organization, but it has a lot of power to mess you up. And now we get the proof in the media. Now, this is interesting, because how do you now choose, is this the truth or is this a lie? So I always go on their admission. They're going to agree, they're going to be a source of admission, then we can go with the fact. Admissions and confessions I run with. So if you're going to admit and confess you've done the crime, or you fail the duty you were obligated to do, I'm going to take that to the bank. I'm going to write that down. So we always look for the admissions and confessions of someone who you may have question of, in particular, these so-called white hat government agencies supposed to be doing all this good. The FBI admits they never examined the Democratic Party's server regarding the Russian hacking nonsense that we've been hearing about. Now, how can you not investigate that server, not look at the data behind that, and make any claim as to the origins or the fact at all of its being hacked? Let alone we have information it's not a hack, it's a leak. It's drips, not bits here. So here we have an investigative agency on the Executive Department of Government. I like to say it this way. You need to understand this comes from an established organization that has function hierarchy. It has authorities. It has delegations that have to be in place. All the points of which you get to challenge at every turn. The FBI made conclusions and gave their reports to other intelligence agencies about what happened with the servers and never investigated the servers. And yet came to the assessment conclusion that Putin did. Putin did it, and Russia did it. I'm just reading this. This is just from the title of this story. We can go. I want you to all read these stories because you start seeing all the facts. You build I could build a line by line complaint from these news articles. When you look at them, these agencies from obligations and duties, and then their failures. If anybody would just start looking at this way, they would start to make a nice, simple discussion. You don't have to go on and on about where the failures are, what the problems are. If the FBI, that is tasked with investigating crime, did not even look at the servers, that's bad enough. Let's add it on over. Don't you remember I told you, folks, you want to get on the internet, you got a digital signature. When they do look at this stuff and they come up with their ideas about what you've done, they make stuff up. This is the other side of this coin. If they won't look at it and will say Russia did it, they can make stuff up and say you did it. But this story to me points out that if we have proof, and you should keep this document, you should actually track this down to prove out, collect all the evidence, especially the FBI admission, the proof, a certified proof that they did not make the examination of the servers, yet they made a conclusion. You have evidence to attack every warrant ever made, because they now have evidence, and you should build this evidence, that they are willing to make statements without investigation, which condemn people for probable cause to believe. The other side of that is the judges are accepting it. And so you can pit the judges against the FBI. Why are you rubber stamping these things when you now know the FBI will make statements on affidavits or in statements or in reports that they're duty bound to give in truth, and they'll make lies? See, for me, this Democratic Party server thing is old news. The guys in the office, it wasn't the Democratic Party. We've got to look really what's going to happen now coming. These people are continuing the plan that these DNC servers were exposing. Is more important to me than even the story. But the fact that the FBI did not even investigate the servers and made a claim about the data or the whodunits shows you these people are corrupt to no minimum level. And that can be used against them in a court of law. They've confessed they're liars and cheaters and thieves and deceivers. They've confessed they're willing to blame those that are supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, or at least by probable cause. They've proven they will do it on no evidence. Isn't that no evidence again? Do we need really more? Well, it depends on what our options are. If we're trying to decide whether or not the FBI is a credible agency anymore, and not by opinion, but by their actions and by their testimony, their own admissions. No, they're telling us right here that they're not truthful, and yet they go and they get people. They become the investigative body for probable cause-based warrants and other things, and the war of terror against you. If you got to really pull this together. They have admitted they don't even look at certain things and will make conclusions that will harm people. This is another form of defamation in the minimum. More importantly, this is a war of terror against nations. This is, I told you, folks, this is extrajudicial. All the walls came down. There is no international law. I told you this years ago. This is more evidence of the United States. Remember Rule 41. That's the United States believing they can tear down every other country's walls and get into everybody's faces everywhere for whatever reason. And now we find out they'll just make the claim that they said that they went in the server and make a claim about what happened around that, and that's good enough. I'm hoping you appreciate here, I don't read the so-called news as a story to be read. I look at for the elements of the crimes against us, and I'm hoping and telling you somebody will step up, because I can only do so much. Somebody will step up and start correlating this information. And if you don't do anything with it, just correlate it as proofs, put it together, stick it someplace that everybody can get at it. Hopefully, since you're the one doing the research, you'll have it in your mind firmly how to lay out, we put it in the more formal statement of a complaint against them, whether or not it can go anywhere. You do it to witness the crime to everybody else other than the system that we see as corrupt. I'm just wondering, I had to go pause. Are you all listening to me and that devoid of care that somebody, a couple of you even, wouldn't get together to pull these kinds of things together for all of us? Is the kind of things I'm telling you. You don't have to go down to do this. Your local work is your local decision to get involved somehow. I look at this story and it tells me all kinds of stuff against the veracity of any affidavit the FBI would do. This is one story. There's a couple of others that are very, very big that need to be combined, acquired, combined, collated, and displayed, and or more purposefully addressed as far as the veracity of these people that are in these governmental office. Folks, they're dealing on the appearance of impropriety. They don't have to make a violation here. This fiduciary duty is a very high bar. It's being given lip service in lots of areas, but it's because we've been allowing it. That's not a reason for it to continue on their part, but that's no, I don't like it, but that means that we have to roll our sleeves up maybe a little bit higher. The FBI didn't even look at the Democratic Party servers when it declared that Russia done it, folks. Think about this. And I'll extend it to every other thing that the FBI does. And that you can get sucked in, and friends of yours and your little ones in the future will get sucked in on situations based on what we can see here is absolutely zero evidence, although they will make a report that says that they have something that gave them probable cause, and they've signed their name to it, and another judge will rubber stamp that. Because the system is the system, and it's going to protect itself, and it's going to get worse until you stop it. That's not my rule. That's a law of nature. For all of you all that think you'd understand the laws of nature, I don't see anybody actually understanding it because it doesn't invoke in anybody I hear talking about it the principle of action or the principle of organization, if you're capable to do that, to bring better action. Now, my private experience is I'm not a guy to pull people together. I have a powerful support in my thoughts and research and background to be able to look at things, but I'm not someone to pull. Like, as I've said before, I'm just not the Tony Robbins of this idea, this thing we need to do. I wish I was. I wish I was I don't even know the guy's name. Bill Hicks. Okay, the guy Bill Hicks. I wish I was a comedian to give you a laugh, to bring you into a concept, to get involved, and I sneak in by your when I lower your defenses by my humor. I'm not that guy. I wish I was. But something has to change in us that we automatically now start invoking our own desire. Otherwise, and more than our words and more than our fact that we think we understand it all and how it all works, none of that's working. None of that's going to be. It means nothing. As I said, your opinion means nothing. Your opinion is like a sheet of information on a shelf somewhere. It means nothing. When I had an opinion, it was based on fact, and then we had to put it in practice, and that ended up being for the example to you all, so that it's an objective witness that you can make, was our lawsuit. If it was an opinion I had, it was put to the test and fulfilled in the answer in a default judgment to our favor. So our opinion is useless. My opinion was of things, and my observations were useless until we put the rubber, make sure the rubber was meeting the road, and then made sure that we weren't, because this is what happened, made sure that our endeavor, our information, our data, our research, our knowledge wasn't derailed, wasn't knocked off the road by some other criminal called the judge or the clerk. And so when I speak of things, I'm talking, there's a whole lot to know, but I'm already here to advance that to anybody. There's nothing that I'm not giving of myself that you can't just ask about. And I do my best, and I hope that it goes someplace. There's a methodology, there's a battlefield. You have to assess it. You have to analyze it, make the assessments. You have to do everything what the enemy's been doing to you, and you have to do it really quickly. There's no excuse here. And that's why it can be as simple as looking 15 minutes a day, as long as you dedicate it 15 minutes a day for the rest of your life to come up with stuff that no one else understands, put it together for someone who then, you just watch for the one that's going to be the one to carry that baton you've created for them. It's the thing they needed. As I said, our lawsuit sets the foundation that the federal district courts, United States district courts, are not competent, that the senior judges and the magistrate judges are not competent to hear Article 3 matters, that there is no territory over which they rule in matters of Article 3 subject matter, that they will do you in within their administrative structure to defeat remedy, that they are part and parcel to the destruction of our nation, because they subvert the lawful establishment and subvert the laws by subverting the courts that you would go to for the remedy. Our lawsuit catches all that. It catches the fact in the rules that they use against for us and against us on declaring it as due process. We use those rules to explain when they defaulted, they agreed to committing treason. Who is they? It's the Bar Association, the political parties, some named people that were in the lawsuit that were in the state of Oregon, the governor, and because of the remedy of injunction extending to all those that aid and abet the crime against you, the civil side crime against you, that involves all those, included all the law universities, included all the agencies of the government, included all the Solutions Network, included all the policy consensus groups, included all the stakeholders. If you hear what I'm saying, we've laid a foundation that is no longer opinion, that can be moved because this is a universal tool of war against us. You can go about anywhere in the world with what we've established. Jurisdictionally, I have to be careful of the jurisdictional part of this, but at least in the United States of America for sure, because they call it the United States, and you didn't know that you got shoved there. Not the United States of America. You're in the United States, and their territory is a fiction. You call it a corporation. I call it a defect in competency. By the rule, they have no way to provide the remedy, is our answer as to why you feel the system has failed. There's been an oppressor and an occupier that's stolen that establishment. We have now the infrastructure that now protects that establishment, and we get the evidence here. The FBI did not investigate a server that it turned around and blamed Russia for invading, for a purpose of undermining the United States political system. That's a long way of saying the Russians were committing committing terrorism. I hope you put this together. In fact, you can replace Russia as a causative factor. You replace Russia in everything you read with the United States government or its agencies or its provocateurs or its aiders and abettors, and you'll have the true story. Well, as you trip over the lies that were the truth. So you got to invert everything here once you do it right. Once you take their story and correct it, you have to recorrect all the truth that was in it to maintain that, because the little bits of truth they throw in to keep your attention have to be inverted when you invert the whole equation. So you have to read back through that for that. What was true when becomes false. It's not this difficult. So we have evidence. To me, it's really important to know we have evidence that the FBI, those that investigate crime, don't investigate anything, and they'll tell you they'll make it up. I say that it extends to their warrant affidavits. I submit to you that means that they'll make up anything and make a warrant to do whatever to whomever. That's a failure so far beyond it, and that continues. I'm astonished at some level. Intelligence agencies say a Russian-ordered influence campaign to aid Donald Trump in election against these intelligence agencies are really an embarrassment. Influence campaign. You know, if influence was a major crime, they would have stopped the Solutions Network policy consensus provisions of the processes that they use to destroy us in this country that we sued against. Because if you remember, the oppressor that we have right now is the attorneys and the political parties, and they are allowed to be influenced, or they influence decision makers to make laws or to make decisions as policy, which is really what the legislatures are. They're not making laws anymore, they're making policy. And they can be influenced. If influence campaigns were actually the problem, as it says here, the intelligence agencies say Russia ordered influence campaign, why haven't they turned their attention that we sued against just that influence campaign? Why didn't they stop that before in 2013? That they're interested in the one that Russia can't be proven to do today. Shows me, if not you, if shows me, influence campaigns are a red herring. They're an excuse for a failure to cover up that they have no evidence whatsoever, and they keep telling us that, and I hear crickets beyond media. Oh, that's where we are. Behind the Woodshed is beyond media. We are here beyond all that, and I hear crickets is our problem. Influence campaigns happen all the time. We're living and suffering under a large one now. We sued that in 2013. If influence campaigns were that illegal, to infect our political system, to destroy the Republican form of representative government, why hasn't the Solutions Network through the EPA, the grant stream funding been stopped? Why isn't the state of Oregon shut down? Why is the state of California shut down? Why isn't Nevada shut down through the influence? Why is the Solutions Network, through their use of, and on top of that, the Consensus Policy Network, why is it all shut down? These are major influence rackets. They get you to put the gun to your head and pull the trigger. And we have nobody that says no in government because they're all on the take of it. This is not really that hard to understand, that I hear crickets against any of it. We'd rather go look at other things. We'd rather go talk about other things. We'd rather make excuses, whether it's, oh, I understand the system and it's enough that I'm not going to mess with it, that it's killing us, literally killing us. It allows for all this allows. You don't think the FDA and the EDA is influenced by the corporations? If influence campaigns were truly illegal, this wouldn't have even come to bear, because the internal Soviet structure would have been destroyed already. But it's not. So this influence campaign, intelligence agencies say, I say, so what? You're advancing, I remember, change Russia to the United States intelligence agencies. Change Russia to the United States administration right now. intelligence agencies say that they ordered influence campaign to aid Donald Trump election is what the proof of the evidence shows, doesn't it? So I just changed one of the parties. Listen, remember, I've told you, you point a finger out, you better be careful. You got 3 pointing back. You better have those all worked out. So if the intelligence agencies are pointing their finger at Russia, they got 3 pointing back, folks. This is really simple. The evidence shows that the United States administration itself is the culprit. Why is this such a hard, continuing discussion and covered by fake news? This title, I keep telling you, is the notice to us. They claim influence campaigns are the problem, that Russia did it, Putin did it. In fact, if influence campaigns were a crime and were a problem, they would have, the intelligence agencies that were properly acting under the fiduciary to the people would have stopped the one we sued in 2013. They wouldn't have come against us when we went after Sally Jewell to stop her felonies in the office. This is the same FBI on the last story came after the witness and the victim instead of going after the perpetrator that admitted that she was doing the crimes. How? Remember, I've discussed with you sending a simple letter, show cause, how you're not committing felonies and treason on these issues by these methods. And she didn't answer. I can only take that as probable cause to believe that she's committing felony and treason. And we got attacked by the crime investigators being the victim of her felonious and treasonous activity. So this is not an opinion that we're dealing with a criminal syndicate. That's not the government. It's not the way it's supposed to work. It's what everyone is responding against, and they claim, they point out the fictitious structure and say that's the harm. It'd be like walking out to your car and saying, you car are the one that's causing all my life's problems. You're the one that killed the body in the street when I was turning into my driveway. This is what we're doing when we point at government, this inert thing. No, there's people inside, they're doing something, and we've identified a large number of things they're doing that are all not relevant to keeping the peace, looking out for our security. They've created a false security system because they've invented the war of terror. Not something they just adopted it as a methodology. So, a couple clues here. Let's flip the word Russia to the United States and its cohorts. We're participating in an influence campaign. Now go look at the evidence and see if that what I've just told you when you just flipped this article, this title of the article around, if that's not more true than what the so-called intelligence agencies are telling us. And that influence is the new method for how they push in sustainable development, global governance, all these other things you've heard about. Straightforward oppression, occupying forces, that's not, you don't even need sustainable development on that. It's all there. It doesn't matter what category of lawlessness you choose. Straight up caucustocracy, the worst rising inside the system to rule over you all, and you float in the stinking abyss that they create for you, and you say nothing about it. I'll end there. I was going to say some other gross things. I won't. Putin ordered influence campaign aimed at U.S. elections, report says. Let's change the word from Putin to Obama. Obama ordered the influence campaigns aimed at the United States election, report says, or Obama's administration, or those that are aiding and abetting, I think is at least as probable when we find out FBI has no evidence of the servers whatsoever, of what happened with those servers. We can put anybody's name on the front of this. But what's important is that the United States is saying that. The United States is the one that's saying this. American intelligence officers. Is this really that intelligent, folks? I don't think so, but this is what they're promoting even in the name. I mean, I could read on. I go down and I start scrolling through it. What do I want to read? I don't want to read any of it. It's all interesting information. It's just the elements of the crime. It's the steps of how the crime's being perpetrated against us. And I hear crickets. Yeah, that broken record. Those crickets start sounding kind of irritating when you realize that means something else the way I'm using it. It's kind of like the sound of a nail scratching on chalkboard. And so for me, I have to listen to that as I realize that that noise is not just a noise that irritates me. It's our destruction because we're not responding. It means we're not responding. We're not taking the hand off the nails off that chalkboard. We're not stepping up and saying, stop that. And somehow we don't have the clue on how that works and how to go ahead and do it, how to stand up and go do that. We have no clue on how to activate ourselves. That's quite astonishing. And even if I don't have an answer, we're swinging for the fences on whatever we think we got going. So much so that they couldn't even catch the ball we hit, folks. If you don't quite get this, you really have to sit down and think. Don't put your prejudice in this. Consider what happened. The Bar Association, which rules everything in your life, was challenged for its lawful existence in this country and for its oppressive construction, treatment, and destruction of the Republican form of representative government, along with the two political parties and a couple of actors that are advancing it. And they couldn't field the ball. It was a home run hit, which means that they are doing these dastardly deeds. I hope you appreciate this. I don't think people appreciate what this is, and I'm not trying to push it up. I mean, like, well, look at what we did. No, I said, well, no, look at what we did. Not we. Look at what was done. Look at the home run hit. Grand slam. They couldn't even field it, folks. And if I'm saying you extend that to this and you see the government as being the crime organization that it is, so easily outed, that it's not hard for me to just replace Russia and the three fingers pointing back to the accuser, to the United States administration and whomever's working with them. It doesn't really matter to me. U.S. Intel says, experts say, did you get that one yet, folks? Did that one come to your mind? I don't know. I can't see the chat. We talk about this. I can't follow the chat. It's just too confusing for me. It's always in the wrong context. It's not in the right way. I would respond wrong. In fact, I look at the RLM chat. It's like they got the Jeopardy going on. It looks like a hamster cage of answers going through. It's so fast to me, I can't even keep up. Funny, Grimner said to run faster. Well, no, I actually thought about it. I'm not playing the game. I'm not in the game watching the rungs come by of the postings. I'm actually standing outside looking at the rungs going by me. I have to jump in first. So there's things that happen too fast for me to consider, that I keep focused on what I am, and I hope people start hearing what I'm saying. Just take a small part of what I'm doing and start putting it together for yourself. If you have another way to go that works, go that way. I'm not the end-all be-all of this. U.S. Intel, experts say, Russian hacking, in quotes, retaliation for Panama Papers and doping scandal. I would say maybe it wasn't Russian hacking, maybe it was the United States plan, wasn't it? We talked about all that. Panama Papers, you haven't heard about all that for a long time. Panama Papers, doping scandal. See, they're putting so much dust in the air now that you can't see what's going on. You all of a sudden now you can't even see who's throwing the dust particles. U.S. Intel says Russian. Well, if U.S. Intel is based on FBI not researching anything, how can we believe anything? This is so far beyond fake news or actual intel. It's a joke, isn't it? And yet we get involved in it. We put lots of time. I'm even talking about it, but again, make the distinction for yourself. I'm talking about it in a way that you should see right through the transparency to see who is trying to be transparent and get you to follow into this thing, take a position, take a side, and not go after the perpetrator. Not call out the war of terror against you as a pretext for the necessities that they're coming to strip your life, and then use these lies as a cover to say they needed to do it to blame someone else for committing the perpetration of the crime against you. You tie that one together on a piece of paper, folks. Just make a list. It's only a few sentences long. Why can't we just do that? Why is this so hard? Apathy doesn't answer it. Because apathy just proves you've agreed to be part of the criminality. Understand that. Apathy means you know, you're just not acting. So apathy doesn't answer this. It's an indictment against you for not finding something in here to respond to. Russian intel. You know, now we have there's another evidence here. If we can't get them to take evidence, actual evidence, they talk about believing this and asserting that and whatever, all that, without the proof, these people can't be trusted to be running the government. I told you a long time ago, when they let the war of terror on you and they let the attacks happen in this country, they failed their fiduciary duty to the people. They are no longer having a capacity to have a say. They don't have the right to claim a necessity. They caused it. And the only way they can fix it is they stop it and stop messing with us and stop lying to us. And until we stand up and say that and assert that every day by whatever means we want to, and we have all the technocracy is against us, we can use it back. Till we start figuring out ways to use that technology back, we're going to be in some trouble against this. They're going to get what they want, as I said before. They're going to get what they want in other broadcasts. And they're going to do it on a lie, on a deception, a fraud, a treason. You can put any name on it. It's a crime against us. I'm not saying anything. I keep saying these words. It's over and over and over, using all the week's notice to us to prove it over and over again. Yes, I'm frustrated. And it's like ceaseless. It's not never ending. The frustration. I'm amazed more that even so that people, again, the microcosm of the miner, the miners will choose all the wrong things and do the wrong things before they'll listen to reason and law and the proper application of things, is what's happening in America right now. This whole intelligence infrastructure is built into this war of terror imposition that's stripping of you and giving you security. And it's all a lie. It started with a lie, a fraud. It's an entirety of a fraud. Under the law applicable for people to rely on this color of authority, terrorism, inducing the necessity to lie to you is a felony, if not the treason that it makes war on those laws it claims to secure you to is. And then we get the admission. Again, I work on admissions and confessions. If they say it, or they omit to act, or they have a duty, I accept it as the truth that I can rely on for my next step, as you heard me describe the Sally Jewell statement to them, the demand to her, show cause how you're not a felon in treason, and then delineating what the actions were and the method they were accomplished, which constitute the crime, and show cause to us how you haven't done that. In other words, produce the evidence that we have it wrong and you had it a different way. When we get silence on that, I can take that as a probable cause admission of the fact and move forward. So I look for their government's admissions. I attempt at times to get admissions from them. I will ask them directly for a clarity that is the law and then oppose it to their position and say without an answer, I will take the probable cause that you are not in the right. You're not in the law. And then I will go after the employee for doing two things. One, willfully neglecting the law to my detriment and not going to their supervisor. I impose the duty of the system to have imposed rules sufficient to protect this condition. We go on now, so we get these admissions and confessions. We build our evidence. This takes a little bit of time. It's letter writing. It's knowing your subject matter and what you're after and how to get it. Not your opinion. It's not knowing it all and saying that's good enough. If you know it all, go do something with it. Stop pounding your chest and telling us how big and bad you is about all you know. Prove it. Lead U.S. intelligence agency admits WikiLeaks Democratic emails are authentic. Now, the FBI says they didn't look at the server, so we don't know about the intel there, but lead U.S. intelligence agencies admit WikiLeaks documents and Democratic emails are authentic, authenticates those emails. There's a document that will be attached to this story. I'll read the important quote out of the document and report. There's actually quite a bit in that report. They all make it try and sound like the Russia was doing it, but in fact there's no evidence, but they do authenticate. The WikiLeaks documents that we've all been seeing which I think is critical to understand, to bring a case. If you had a case or a position to bring forward, is critical to now get this as evidence of the fact of the authenticity of the evidence of the emails, which said what? We'll get to that in a second. We assess with the high confidence that GRU relayed material it acquired from the DNC and senior Democratic officials to WikiLeaks. Disclosures through WikiLeaks did not contain any evident forgeries. So you can take those emails to the bank. So let's get to those emails just quickly. What did those emails actually start to say? And I have two more links I found to go back in history a bit, just a short but ways, right before the election. The question was asked, do latest WikiLeaks emails show an authentic portrait of Clinton? Well, you can't just say yeah. We can know, though, that whatever the WikiLeaks emails show is authentic. Your assessment, your opinion of what that may not be authentic, but it allows us to know that the evidence we're coming from is authentic enough that we now focus on our interpretation of that. Because the government now has said those are authentic evidence, folks. You have to understand, again, I use this to tell us how to prove this out. Not by opinion, how to engage ourselves in a proper way. And I say I'm doing this as just an exercise, because you have to do this in every aspect of your life anymore. When they went extrajudicial, it required that you pin them down through the fraud to do that to a judicial condition. Otherwise, you have no remedy against the oppression. And so you always act in order of law, whether the criminal around you does or not. You are maintaining the law, folks. The law is in you. So that was one question. Do WikiLeaks emails show an authentic portrait? Was an actual question. And I have to caution you not to say yes, because now the WikiLeaks emails are authentic, but the WikiLeaks emails are authentic to whatever is stated in them. The portrait that may be gotten from Clinton by that may be subjective. That requires you to make sure you apply in the right context the meanings of what was said in proper connection to bring your interpretation to a probable cause level. Next question was, did the Clinton campaign just accidentally confirm the WikiLeaks emails are authentic? This was done on November 2nd. The question pops up. They reference John Podesta urging Clinton attorney Cheryl Mills to dump Hillary Clinton emails as soon as possible. I'm not going to keep going on. The point is that the question of authenticity has now been answered. The United States intelligence has admitted these WikiLeaks emails are authentic evidence to start looking at whatever you found to be a problem. What were some of the things that were stated? Was that, through the Podesta thing, why I even bring his name up and read a little bit there, he admits to be the mastermind to blaming Russia for this problem. They admitted to a lot of things, actually. Remember, they were going to prop Trump up and then to knock him down. They were going to blame Russia was the most important subject matter I'm talking about here, which then fulfills what the intelligence agencies are doing despite their lack of actual investigation of the servers themselves. What you see is the intelligence community in part, or at least the vocal part, the part with the connection to the media, they are continuing the plan to blame Russia that we found are the statements made in the emails that the U.S. intelligence agencies just admitted were authentic sources to rely on, as principal sources of evidence. We are seeing a continuation of a political coup going on, and now the cover-up to blind us to the condition. And they're going to get away with it all. I don't know what Trump plays in this. I don't know what his part is. I told you 3 weeks before the election something shifted mightily. Something shifted mightily within the government, and Trump is now there. I don't know what deals have been made. I don't know what compromises have been disclosed to him. I don't know where he's now vulnerable. But there's a plan afoot right in front of your face They're admitting now that this is all a deal. This is a Clinton Democratic Party plan to subvert this country's political processes. Even if you think it was subverted, they wanted to do it worse. We have evidence of treason and terrorism by these people. And because no one really lays it out nice and succinct, you don't have to go on and on. You just need a couple, 3, 6 maybe, of these points written down concisely, proven through affidavit by supporting documents outside of the bullet points of presentation to prove what I'm telling you seems very apparent, more than plausible. I have probable cause to believe you're looking at an ongoing coup and cover-up in this country perpetrated by whomever you would find in those emails did that plan as being protected and aided and abetted by these intelligence analysts and the FBI. That sure answers Comey's problem and all the other people that were in the government, doesn't it? They're all part of it, folks. They're plotting and planning, and we sit by as crickets, and there's enough of us that we could take our part in peace and work it out, bring it together, find the one that's best suited to advance it, and move all that evidence forward in a proper place for all to see. Plotting and planning to subvert our nation, the system that was established, to subvert how we have remedy against it, all to protect themselves, the organized criminals. Israel, parliamentary plot against UK politicians, if you think it's just limited to the United States, and who the underlying mouse that roars is in this room, this world room, this global room. This is by Al Jazeera, no less, reveals discussions of Israel diplomat and British civil servant to take down anti-settlement politicians. Really, all I have to do is read the title a lot. I don't have to get in depth for my understanding and what I find very important. That we have this pipsqueak called Israel who hasn't proved itself on the world stage yet. The UN, the body of the UN nations who have agreed to come together to decide this stuff, has not made this distinction and decision about the land called Palestine and how it's supposed to be divided up and where and through by what, that a state has developed to take claim. And they take claim by claiming the land, almost as if if we just put our building on it, we now own it. Now, I don't know if you go to the United States, that won't work too good, would it? And so the international community is impliedly understanding that's not the way this works. But Israel then goes out, takes its diplomats to talk to the people of decision, influence, the peoples of decision, influence campaign to take down any politician who believes that there has to be an overriding law by which we judge people's issues and disagreements. Israel does not want that basis applied to them. That we now have some evidence, if we can take this story to be the truth, and I just can't see how it wouldn't be. The way things go, this is a continuous influence campaign. Where was the intelligence agencies on this, folks? This is happening in the United States. That Israel has they say diplomats. I can't justify that term, folks. That's an agreement to a fact that isn't in evidence. Why? I should maybe ask more questions. They aren't acknowledged as a real government. They're just pretending to be. No one recognizes this, actually. It's made up. Made up by whom? The United States and Britain. But they're willing to subvert democratically elected, if I can use the word democratically without shaking too much world here, politicians. They're willing to work behind the scenes. Okay? Fine. Machiavelli comes to mind. But if you just kind of don't think this is going on, and that your life is being interfered with by these kinds of decisions, you need to take another look. They're plotting and planning. In the country where there's laws, when that's caught, this is a spy in the midst. These people get shot for this kind of stuff. If we're not willing to call this out and arrest it, put it through a trial, through people that are a jury of knowledge and wisdom and experience, unlike what they choose today, which are just unknowing businessmen traveling down the highway through their motor vehicle, we're going to, unless we have the right remedy here, to arrest this, prosecute it, and given there's a judgment of that says so, cause some penalty, we are not going to stop this thing. This skullduggery is throughout. This is not unknown. What I'm saying is that it's risen to such a level that it's adversely affecting your lives in ways, really, I'm speaking to people that your little ones, it's your family, your family's families coming up, they don't have a chance. Your example to not be active in show, and just, there's no excuse. There's nobody that can come against what I've been doing and saying, oh, you're a nut. They may think I'm a nut for continuing, but they can't say I'm a nut for what I have and found that I can prove point by point without any leap whatsoever. That's the position you take, and you advance it, and you provide that even for the future. If you can't do anything with it, you say, here, son and daughter, here's what I've found. This is the reality. You're going to need to do this. This is how you're going to have to use this, because you're going to need to protect yourself. If you're not doing that much, you're aiding and abetting the crime against your little ones up front. Yes, I'm putting some guilt trip on those that have a conscience here. Yes, I'm doing that intentionally. I want you active against these oppressors. However you decide is not my decision. Where you decide to work is not my decision. That you work is only my earnest request of you in this world, the time you all have left, to make something of yourselves. The pipsqueak in the room is working mightily to keep itself afloat, and I say that they're doing it this way because they really don't have a leg to stand on. And I didn't copy it down. I keep thinking about doing it. I saw a video. I think it came through the freedomsnetwork.com website. It was a little link that someone put in, and I apologize for not remembering all who this is. It was talking about, and I don't, about the, see, I don't look at and research this too much. I just look at the facts. I keep the facts in mind, and all these things that are, all the details, I guess a better documentarian or host, broadcaster would say to you, it's where the origins of what one group of the Jews is, and I can't remember their name, starts with a K. At any rate, they moved to Poland. Through that video, it wasn't that video, what its message was that was important to me. What was important was when I looked at the video, it occurred to me there's a proof that will settle the problem in the Middle East, and it's based in law. It's based in what everybody does in a hereditament question. It has nothing to do with my opinion, whether it's Zionist or Jewish, has nothing to do with that. Has nothing to do with your origins, has nothing to do with what we perceive. When you come down to a hereditament, hereditaments are what you find the word in your patents in America, the heirs and assigns forever. Heirs are an action of hereditament to make the claim. That occurred to me when I saw the word blood in this video. It triggered a thought I'd already thought about it, but it hadn't made the direct importance. That this, if there was law in the world, this whole thing in Israel, it's actually Palestine. See, we use the word, we give them credit. It's not Israel. It's nothing yet. It's Palestine is what it is, that land. If you have a claim to that land, anybody, forget the status you want to call yourself. Forget your identity principles about being Jewish, which is just a religious belief. Zionist, that's just political belief. Nonsense. You either have a blood connection to the land and have to prove 2 points of that, as every heir would, or you fail. Every one of us has a claim to the land in Israel. We have a right to make the claim. The problem is, can we prove it? That's not on the state. That's not on the Palestinians, the Gazans. That's not on anybody that doesn't claim, and it's not on anybody that lives there more than the one who makes the claim for the land. Has nothing to do with what you believe, has nothing to do with your political aspirations, has nothing to do more than can you prove that you belong there and that it's yours by a chain of documentation to the land. And so this whole thing about, it just occurred to me on this one little video. I really wasn't into the video. It was very interesting, gave me another dynamic to look at, but it failed to bring the point on that when we deal with hereditaments in land, there's a process already known that has been avoided by the world, which is the crime against the Palestinian people, and I'm talking even if they are Jewish. They can be Christian, they can be anything, because all you have to do has nothing to do with your beliefs. It almost excited me to figure out the core of this whole thing. Has nothing to do with our belief systems. It has everything to do with the law on the land and proving the right. And the burden is on those that make the claim. In other words, you can't just let someone come and make settlements anywhere just because they have the power backed up by a bigger Uncle Sam to do so. Here's the other point. As a hereditament, each one who makes the claim, we're not talking about a fictitious state of people making a claim. The state has no standing to make a claim. The state does not have the land unless it can prove the title to that land. And this made a reason why I now think you were seeing so much so-called scientific findings that the Jews, so-called, I don't believe in all this stuff. They're just what they call themselves to give themselves an Israeli status to the land that doesn't exist. They are trying to prove their existence in the land as a body of people. They're trying to show that there's a commingling. Well, folks, that's what happened in Palestine. This is what you see in Syria. All kinds of people live in these areas. All manner of people with beliefs of all manners of sorts all live peacefully up until the United States and Britain went in there and started smashing everybody. Peaceful enough that the state cannot prove an existence of any one of the people that claim a hereditament. Each one of those people, you or I, can make the claim. The point will be, do we have the evidence to prove the claim? This is the process I think they should have been doing all along. Actually, there is no state solution here. This is proving out with an international review of fact on the ground your blood connection, why the blood connection becomes so important that the Jews think that they have an ID that they can put on this by their blood is irrelevant to proving that's connected to the land. Because that proof goes by known processes. And so when we see people like this so-called Israeli diplomat plotting with a UK politician to undermine the notion of a support in Britain against their destruction of objective law and destruction of their burden to prove by lawful means, you should not be okay with that, because if the UK will allow it, it reflects over to the United States. I tell you, there's a mirror here. Whatever happens there is a mirror of what happens here. They will come here and they will have the way, they will develop the influence campaign against your property rights. And I'm not just talking the land here. It extends to all property. It's how they've been doing it. They actually take the status of property away, and when they do that, they don't have to give you due process. This is another insight that people may not appreciate. It took me a long time to realize that. How are they going to get rid? I've talked about it on the broadcast. It's not new. It comes up again. How are they going to these people tell us that this due process, this law, is really an impediment to their action, and so they've been plotting and planning to move against. How do we stop this property thing? Because we have to provide due process, compensation, fair hearings, all this stuff, in order to take it from somebody. Then they did something really simple. They stuck everything under commerce, under regulatory, administrative bureaucrats, and they stole it because it's not property there. It's a privilege. It's why I keep saying about the distinction between real property and your private property in land. Real property is a commercial thing. It's a regulable thing. I say this advisedly, but it's a thing that was supported by the state, and the only way you could do it was through the state privilege. That thing that's taxable is not the substance of the thing. They took away the property. They don't have to provide you with due process and compensation now. This is what's going on in the administrative world. Why I tell you, you have to engage this administratively. The Indians do not have a rap on the victimization by bureaucrats and administration in this thing. They better had come to terms with it, though, and stop being obstinate. Israeli parliament plot against UK politicians who agree with law being asserted. And I am reminded when I saw this anti-settlement politician, well, how do you prove hereditament? It was affected by a video I saw on freedomsnetwork.com. It wasn't even about the video. It was what my thoughts were triggered by things I saw being stated from the facts they could produce in evidence. It wasn't even about what they were saying. It was about what is, at least in my mind, what has gone wrong and how to fix what would be happening. And it's so simple. And it's probably why the plotting and planning goes on, because they know it. Don't ever think these people plot and plan against doing something lawfully when they actually know it. That's why they're plotting and planning. To subvert something, and that diminishes all of us. They diminish it over there in Palestine. I really could care less who can prove it. See, that's their right. That the people that have the right over there already were imposed to have to prove it is another style of violation. When the so-called Jews, that we see as the Zionist political movement, forced itself into a land that none of them that I can see at this point will be able to prove, except, I can't say none, because in that video, if you listen very carefully, there's 8 to 10% that they don't ever speak about that exist. And I would submit that's the 8 to 10% that do have the proof to the connection to the land. 8 to 10% of the population in that area of so-called Jews can prove that they have right to that land. No different than any other Palestinian can. But that's not the whole population. That's 8 to 10% who have the actual proof. And the rest is gone. And I think that's the knowledge of this, and that's why they've been dragging their feet. And so we get all this skullduggery coming down to defeat us everywhere, because nobody actually stands up and understands what the actual simple foundational point is, which is what I try to bring behind the woodshed through all my discussions, through all my meanderings of all the notice that we call news, all these things, trying to bring out some of these concepts in order for you to tag on to them, to build them up on your own. I can't do that for you. CIA liars, torturers, murderers, CIA worse than useless was the title of Mish Talk. This guy Mish, I don't know. I just go off what these things are talking about. Mishak, I don't know. You'll find it. My apologies to his honor here and being available. CIA liars, torturers, murderers, CIA worse than useless. Folks, they're criminals. My critique of that title, they're not worse than useless. They're criminals, these people. But he makes a lot of good comments here that I think is a general information you kind of have to pay attention to. He's responding to Trump's tweets and comments and having good effect, and an ex-CIA director warns that Trump's comments will lead to a wave of resignations. And Mitch's opinion is that's good, and I would have to agree. I'm not talking because I agree, but that in this case we do agree. That would be good. Clear it out. The rats will run from the ship instead of the swamp being drained or deepened. As long as the rats leave, the Bureau rats leave, I don't really care, folks. Do you? Now, what we would like to see is accountability. That's really the underlying problem right now. There is no accountability. When they went extrajudicial, that's what I was telling you, whether you understood that or not. When we went extrajudicial, you lost your country. You lost the actual lawful foundations, and you let the caucusocracy beat you down and allowed to be beat you down on any excuse, even whatever they make up. So if they run from the administration, that's a good thing. I would rather see some accountability. And they're going to be running fast because they don't want to get caught, given they believe that Trump's going to be a change. If that's the tide, the sentiment, maybe Trump's going to be better than it looks like on the surface. Although, like I said, I'm not holding my breath. We've got a little angle in, possibly. We're going to try and get our thing through to get some protections in the West for production and fire hazards and getting people jobs and getting us a little bit better. And I think this is in time. We need to do it just for the sake of getting us back to the law somewhat, at least recognition of it. But as important, get people back on their feet a little bit financially, because it's not a cool thing coming here, folks. If I get to them, there's some reports that are coming out that are giving us the heads up against about that. So we get knowledge, we start finding out information, Mish says it's a good thing that the rats are fleeing the ship. That's fine. He doesn't say it that way. I mean, you'll read what he says. You read for his words. I don't know anything about him, but this sentiment seemed true, and it seemed on point. These people that are the liars, the CIA, is saying that there's going to be a waiver of resignation. Now, if you're a criminal inside the CIA, wouldn't you be looking for a way out? If you're a rat inside the CIA, wouldn't you be looking for a way out? I think it's highly plausible that you'd be looking for a way out, wouldn't you? Good guy hacker launches Security Without Borders to defend at-risk dissidents. So while we have all these liars and cheaters, we got people trying to protect themselves from the liars and cheaters, or liars and cheaters themselves trying to remain anonymous. How this all works, double-edged sword on all of this. So just understand that's the weapons in the battlefield. Somehow I've gotten a lot less concerned about someone having a weapon system. I just learned how to defeat it. It's pretty much, I learned that when I was in SCA. We did medieval battling, got in armor, and beat on each other. I took on a certain weapon style that was within my limitations, actually, but something I could wield fairly well. And it ended up being not that I was an aggressor. I was really more of a I could be an attacker, but I was more of a defensive fighter, even though my system was pretty defenseless. And it could attack very well, and I learned to build into that. But again, I had to assess what my skill set was and my limitations. That's kind of humbling. It wasn't the big superhero, I thought, certainly. Not up against a guy that's 6'5" with a monster club that's 5 foot long and beat down on your head. You had to figure out how to defend against that and to best him. But you have to take on a certain weapon system, and so doing that, and then looking around in this legal stuff and the law stuff, you start realizing these weapon systems are there. You don't have to be afraid of them. You just have to learn how to defeat them or use them. Steal them and use them if you need to. Or just use them outright. Collect them up for yourself. Put them in your toolbox, in your weapon cache. And some of these tools that we're going into this new world, Silent Weapons Quiet Wars world, which I've been tweeting out quite a bit, little things that come in. No one seems to see this. All these electronic gadgets, it's just all more silent weapons against us. Keep buying them. Keep praising them. But a good guy hacker launches Security Without Borders to defend at-risk dissidents. I looked at this and said, isn't Security Without Borders, isn't that an oxymoron? Remember I talked to you about borders. You need borders. You need a cell wall to protect yourself from the other parts of the world. Otherwise, you're one big amorphous mass of gloop. I said gloop. Security Without Borders. Isn't that an oxymoron? I also told you that things without borders in this world today, underneath this new digital technocracy and global governance, is the destruction of your property, your countries, your ideas, your laws, essentially your laws. And why was that important? Because for the United States, these laws and the courts and the system of records we had is what made us different than everywhere else in the world. And if you don't appreciate that, you're not hearing what I'm telling you. This is why we need the border in the minimum. Not to keep people out, to maintain the objective line in the way of our remedies. Forget the connection to the land, that arbitrary line. That's not the point. You've got your interest in the wrong space. All this law and legal is jurisdictional. That's the cell wall. You come in and Security Without Borders, you have no borders, you have no protection against these things. Why? How could that be secure? What have I told you about doctors without borders? Water without borders. Remember, I've talked about this long time ago. As a matter of fact, we're coming on to my anniversary of starting broadcasting. It took me a couple years to figure out how to even approach the thing, to get to a broadcaster. It's so much easier now. And again, thank you to Grimner for making it so. Not that he was the first guy I came into, but he certainly made it easy to come into doing broadcasting at reallibertymedia.com. And I hear we have a new broadcast, Smoke and Mirrors, but I think it's RobWorks. I apologize, these names don't come so quickly, but so you too, if you have a good, I think if you've been researching your stuff and you come true, I think tell the people. But getting into this broadcasting was a lot more difficult before, and I think I'm coming. I think it's eighth year now. Not a big number really compared to lots of other guys or women, but long enough, folks. I should have been seeing some change here. So hopefully in the future we're going to see that, the change that we need because we're engaging. And I think on that I heard Eddie Craig, and I fascinated to hear Eddie's work. I've heard him before, but at the time earlier, it was irritating to me as he was learning too what I was doing, and so I didn't really fall into listening too much. But he's a powerhouse. So if you need to listen to Rob Works' interview with him, but I would ask you to do something for yourself. Listen very carefully to what Eddie says, and I will tell you, we are so close on a lot of things that you will not find. Well, I suppose he sounds a bit like me. Now, remember, he'll talk about other, like property. He's into property too, but a little more minor than to his traffic. So this is where I changed a little bit. I used to do what he did in traffic, and I said, wait a minute, this problem's bigger than us, bigger than this. It's always going to be here. We're never going to stop, and a lot of people can't get what we need to do. We need to find out who's harming us, and not our response to the harm. But so that's a distinction between him and I, where we've kind of parted. But his work was very informative for y'all. And I would ask you, though, listen carefully to where I would change certain things. And I think you'll start to appreciate when you do that analysis where I've gone, why I went there, and what my view doesn't invalidate his. It actually complements what he's done, but it comes in a different way, on very subtle terms. For instance, just to maybe focus, and I'll get this wrong, because I have to go back and listen, because I had to listen real quickly. A lot of notes you can take if you're into it. The point there was at the point of talking with a cop. When they approach you on like a traffic thing, he has a certain thing he does. He has a script, he said. I want you to listen to his very first question. And I want you to then think about what I've told you we've done that's just a little different. And then I want you to think what he says and ask the question, doesn't it, the first thing he does, isn't it actually agreeing that the officer had the probable cause? Where what I suggest is to challenge his subject matter jurisdiction to eliminate that. I'm not saying he's wrong. That's his methodology. What I'm saying is that there's a continuous way to analyze these things and move us more and more into what's more important. And to me, I found to deny the officer the subject matter jurisdiction eliminates my need to respond, will the document I give you incriminate me? That implies he's probable cause to the stop, folks. So, not to call him wrong at all. I don't want to diminish him at all. He does something I don't do. He lays it out chapter and verse, something I decided I wouldn't do. Why? Because I've noticed when I do that, it's like handing y'all a gun and you're going to shoot yourself. And you hear it when he says he has to take cases on to help people. Not diminishing that. That's what he wants to do. That's what he can do. And he helps people. For myself, I didn't have that. I could do it, but I'd still be doing it, and it wouldn't get us where I think I had to go in order to find what I have been finding. And so I want you to listen to, I highly commend his work, but listen to subtle distinctions between us. I think if we got together and talked a bit, we could work out some of the, well, they're not really problems. It's just maybe a terminological thing, making sure that we are saying the same, having the conversation in the same terms. Again, this is so very important. I try to tell you all the time. Even with somebody as learned as him, I would make sure we have the right dialogue almost all the time. Our conversation is terminologically correct, and then crossing jurisdictional boundaries of the states, making sure that one body of law actually connects up to the one that maybe between the two of us we have different references of the same thing. Making sure that they are the same thing. For most everything he said, I think you've heard me say. I want you to notice, though, there's a subtle difference, and I'm always listening for these things. It's not something about getting better. It's about getting better at what you do and understand. And so, Rob Works, I thought you did, when I finally heard, I'm glad your audio was great. You can hear it nice and good, and you have a nice file there for people to go through. Eddie did a great job as well. Thank him for both of you. Thank you for putting that out. You can find that, I think, on Spreaker, folks, RLM Spreaker account. At any rate, I hope I got all that right. I got so much other things on my mind that just occurred to me to say based on how this train of thought goes in me regarding how we address all these people that want to promote certain issues that are really not a proper thought. Again, security without borders is an oxymoron in my mind. How can you have no border and have a security? And this is what relates back to the IUCN I told you about years and years and years ago, where I digressed when I first started broadcasting. I went to the IUCN.org group of International Horde of Trespassers. I used to call them International Horde of Trespassers, which all your federal agencies, not all of them, but the BLM, the Forest Service, the Commerce Department, most importantly, is all part of that. In fact, the Commerce Department head was the head of this organization. The head of the United States was the head of this ICUN.org. The International Horde of Water Trespassers are just trespassers. They do water without borders. Folks, your water law in the United States is not the water law anywhere else. The water law in the United States is very consistent between states, but not identical in all states. You break down your borders, you break down the whole scheme of things. And they want to attack your water because it's a necessity of life. It's how they're doing the Bundys. It's how they're doing the Land Act, the Service Acquisition. Everyone says, well, he doesn't have a property right. You haven't read enough, folks. You're wrong. If you don't think that family has a property right, you're wrong. If you don't think the government was obligated to protect it and they are breaching the fiduciary duty to do so, you're wrong. And you're wrong because you believe that there's a way to get at stuff without law when you get to land. There's no objective basis. You're agreeing to have an Israel diplomat work with the UK MP in order to subvert guys that would say, wait a minute, Israel, you can't put settlements on land that hasn't been declared yours, or what part? And then I make the observation through a video saying, wait a minute, there's a bigger and faster test to this. It's in every hereditament test. You make the claim, you got to bring the proof. Don't be messing around. Don't be attacking people. Don't be building your house just because you have a say first. No. That has to be adjudicated before you come on. And so we have got this whole thing upside down, and no one says a thing against it. And that's a failure in us because we won't insist on that here, and we don't. That we will agree to this digital thing, security without borders, and okay, cool, security without borders. This guy's a great thing, and I'm telling you it's an oxymoron. I'm not necessarily saying the guy's a moron, but, I wonder, what is this? What is this? In this digital world, this war against us, the silent weapons and quiet wars. They want to get us in. They have a digital invasion going on by people that don't even look at this stuff. Can you imagine the NSA with all their data? Oh, we got some hits on some information. We'll just make something up. That's expeditious for us. Why? Because we get to under the new Rule 41. We just get to say so now. And we can go anywhere in the world and collect up anything. And I hear crickets. Fundamental breach in the due process and constraint to jurisdiction and the jurisdiction of the courts, and I hear nothing. And they did it like that on purpose, so you don't, because none of you want to claim that you understand. On the one hand, you stay completely ignorant and then say you know, and that's an oxymoron in itself. That's ridiculous. On the other hand, you're going to say you're going to fight and you don't even know how. Another oxymoron, at least. It's all just crickets to me. It's just all blathering without substance. Get a foundation someplace and work from that. And I say work from that because that means that when you get the foundation, we'll see what your work is. Whatever it is. Whatever it is. Security without border. I haven't even got to the story yet. I don't know if I want to. You start out with a discussion with a guy who invents the term security at borders, security without borders on a digital front, and I can translate that to everywhere else as a wrong. This can't be right. Now, his idea may be good, but the way he's prefacing it is not going to fulfill what we actually need. And that glitch in his matrix will go down the road as a failure. It eventually pops out as a blind spot. Even if it's good right now, I won't even get into it. It's a video for you. You get it to Blogcaster when I post it. You can go through all this stuff. I think we all need to understand where these attacks are coming. But be careful, the double-edged sword of the white hat versus the black hat. And we really don't know. We really don't know. We don't know the costume that all these chameleons are wearing. And I think I've told you, for me, having an electronics background, having a digital background, a digital device background, the technology is not the basic foundation of electronics, but the technology is way beyond whatever I would have thought. And then you bring in software on top of that, and now we're talking into a realm that they have you're swimming in deep water, and don't even know how to figure out what's going on. And it's so useful for us. I told you, if I wasn't for these computers, and I couldn't talk with you. We could not be communicating. For those that hear me and do, we could not have been in communication so easily. And how much harder it would have been. This was, I think, discussed on the Freakers Ball, and so I'm going to repeat it because I had it on my tabs before as an important thing to understand. Those of you who want to maintain this anonymity a bit, they call it pseudo-anonymity, at least it kind of blocks a bit of you. Changing your location manually in Chrome Firefox can be done. There's a way to do it in Chrome, which I don't use at all, not even Chrome, not Chromium, whatever, I don't use those. But Firefox type stuff I do so far. But at any rate, there's a plug-in for Firefox. There's things you can do in Google Chrome. It's an instruction to keep your location adjusted to be more anonymous than what the ISP will tell you. I think I use, I think it does the same thing. It's called Dolus, D-O-L-U-S. It's a plug-in for my browsers. I think it does the same thing. It goes through the address. I think it's 127.0.0.0. I think that's it. And it changes that into a new address so that when you come in to a place, it doesn't look like where you're at. Now, wireless people, where they're at, that becomes important. You know, the sci-fi movies in the future, they get a bead on you and they know right where you are. For those of you that don't want to have at least one jump ahead, this would be the way to do it. Otherwise, you don't want them to create this data and make up the story. I keep telling you, you don't want to be surfing for a steam cooker and a rice cooker and backpack at the same time anymore. They'll make up the fact that you're making a bomb. It's a lie, but you're making the bomb. And then they know where you are because you didn't cover up your anonymize your address, your digital trace. And so these things adjust that digital trace. In fact, I think it's because I use the Dolus that I think the RLM chat, it can't sync in on me, and I can't be given any privilege. I don't know what the privileges are anyway as far as talking, but it doesn't matter. I don't use it for that. I just go in there and type. As long as it goes in, as long as my connection's good, it fulfills what I need. I'm not in there that long. I don't know anything about it. I understand you can do tons of stuff. If you listen to Sock Puppet, wow, there's all kinds of stuff you can do. And that more power to everybody that can do that. I'm focused myself on something else. But, so this anonymizes you somewhat. And we're not talking Tor, but it gives you a pseudo, it fabricates an ISP, which I think you should consider adding on. As I'm looking into more private tabs on these browsers, that may be the way I transition over as well. It drops out all your cookies and stuff when you leave so that they can't keep tabs on you like they do with YouTube to see what they want to recommend for you, if you didn't know how that happens. And so, important digital protections that we need to start building in. They're silent behind. They're easy to use. Once you set it up, you don't have to worry about it no more. And you're one step more removed from the put into plausible deniability over some idiot, intelligence expert, blaming you for doing something instead of Russia. Why? Because they don't actually look at anything, and they just make it up, as I told you they were doing when I was talking about the Boston bombing and the family that got hit by the local police because they just happened to be searching for certain things. The family was searching for certain things, and someone made up the fact they were going to make another bomb and they were terrorists. So you can let them hack your life, or you can start making it tough, like I've been telling you I make it. I may not be able to figure it all out, but I'm going to make it that little bit tougher. And I ask you to do that for yourself as we figure this out. If you have any modicum of idea that you want us to be moving forward to do something. If you don't, then I don't even know why you're listening to me, first of all. And that said, those that do, and do appreciate this, regardless, I understand that there's an action time, but, I mean, I've been talking long enough, we should be beyond that. I understand, I think Flash was saying that we now have 90 subscribers on the RLM YouTube account. Apparently that gives us a upgraded address for more exposure. That could, for those of you that want to help donate to the broadcast, I'm asking you to go, and if you are using as a subscriber YouTube, maybe you should make yourself a subscriber, get us over the 100 mark. We only need 10 now. And it boggles my mind to know that I'm on the internet, billions of people, and we can only get 90 subscribers on RLM. I really feel worthy when I consider my value versus that number, you know? You're lucky I don't. How's that? I'll save y'all. So get onto YouTube and subscribe for us if you're already using this subscription service that they offer. I mean, why not? Tell people, folks. You got to be telling people. I don't ask for it. I'm not going to say, don't even have to do this for me. If you like what I'm saying, put a like on there, I suppose. Make a favorite. I don't know about them. I hear when you do that, it puts a different rating somehow out there. You can at least do that on every broadcast. Go and click acceptance of the validity of the broadcast, of the subscription, the RLM place that hosts it all. You can at least do that. I see none of that going. Why I have to say that is kind of intrigued to me as well. I appreciate the listeners and I appreciate the response. We have to get together and promote ourselves. For as much as I don't, and as much as I don't have really the mind or the time to go and look for all that, I get guidance from other people that do. Like Vince, he's picking up how easily this is to do, and he instructs me sometimes on, okay, what do you need? I said, well, what's going on there? He tells me, because it's something he has to figure out to do so that we can try and get some more content up better. So I learned from him. As I say, we're always learning something. We've gotten so specialized and things have gotten so intense that we can only spread our energy so much. That's why we all have to help each other. So, to help yourself, anonymize yourself a bit. I would say start using Tor where you can, but that's going to point you out as soon as you get your stuff done. Put encrypted, they'll say you're a hiding terrorist, and then that gives you scrutiny. But the thing is, your stuff's encrypted. So nest it. Nest your information in encryption. Start to learn how to do this, because these people are taking this data. First of all, they don't even read the data, and they blame you. You don't want to hand them some information that can make up to blame you. And it's coming down to your local police. If you think we're all talking national, the local police have this information. I just told you, the marathon bombing in Boston, within a week or two or something, they were in the family's house by the local police, blaming or alleging that there was a problem with the inquiry into a crock pot and a backpack and the son interested in the bombing. It's like they're setting you up for the fall here. Well, let's give them something interesting, and when they go look, we'll blame them for being part and parcel to it. See, they lead us by the nose and we don't even know. They know us better than ourselves, I keep telling you. So, anonymize yourself. Quit allowing your life to be hacked. Another way they're hacking our lives, and real detrimental, in such a way that they're doing this, and it's a crime. It's all war crimes. These are all war crimes. I just can't get beyond that. 13-year-old boy had his life hacked, permanently disabled from chickenpox vaccine, wins his case in vaccine court. Now, I can tell you all about it. You go read, or we could talk about this. The point is, I will take for face value that there's a 13-year-old boy who's now 18 who had to go 5 years fighting. His family had to fight 5 years in the courts, so-called court of claims, in the vaccine court, to prove that a vaccine hurt him. And now he's completely disabled. Bad. That this is an admission that these vaccines, for this boy at least, were no good, and I suggest because they can do this level of harm, you really need to be at your peak understanding of what's going on. As I say, read the product insert. That's the fact and evidence you need to know whether or not it's going to be harmful. And if it's not, ask why, and whether or not that doctor is going to take private liability for the harm that vaccine does cause, being it's so safe. His case here proves admission that the vaccine for this one was harmful. Now, the internal story here is you have to be aware if you choose to vaccine. And I've told you the reports are that we get these vaccines too many, too soon, and too young. That if you look and get only the ones you need and make sure they're not the ones that are the adulterated ones, there's a probability that there is a way to take this on if you believe you have to. If you don't believe you can get it out in the wild and have your body sensitized that way, which now they're going to. They're going around. They now inoculate by injection everybody that they're going to get it, and those that are getting injections of vaccines go sneeze on your little ones that aren't, and they catch it. That should have been we've reported all this. Anyway, getting to this point, the point about this was this kid got 2 injections of the same thing that he shouldn't have. So what we're looking at here, the takeaway is you have to be integrated if you choose to do the vaccines, that they do the vaccination scheduling correct. They're even immune, apparently, from their mistreatment giving vaccines when it went to the vaccine court. So the doctors and nurses can harm you. That you have to be aware of. That's all I want to. I don't want to make these decisions for you. I just want you to be aware. They gave 2 shots of the same thing together too quick, and they believe that. I think this is what they say caused this problem. This now again pushes the fact, the proposition that too many too soon in a body that's not ready or not able can harm it detrimentally. Completely. So we have these treatments that are given by pharma. You know, I'm not real a fan of all this. You also know I'm a bit of an herbalist. I used to do a whole lot more. I don't do so much now, but I still use the tools that nature gives me as best I can instead of going to other things. And yet, if it wasn't for pharmacy, antibiotics, I wouldn't be here today. 1990, I had something that killed people in 4 days. I survived 2.5 weeks and was still able to get to this hospital. They couldn't figure it out because I was supposed to be dead, and it took antibiotics to stop something that nothing else could stop. So, in looking at the totality of things, Western medicine that way saved my life. So I'm not completely. Everything has its place. Since then, I've never had a problem that way. Nothing. Okay, I'm pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. But I stay away from a lot of things. I really have a pretty basic situation going with nutrition and what I resolve for my problems. This is all from me speaking. I'm just conveying an experiential thing that I can go out in the woods and I can find certain things if I need to. And I'm trying to research the time I have. I try to find new things every year to find out what's out in nature to help us. What's the alternatives out there to a vaccine, no less, that cripples your little one? Because of even the first one didn't do it. It was the second one they did. Malfeasance of the fiduciary, of the doctor and the nurse to care, was actually seemingly the problem there. That I came across a video, another natural resolve, and we were talking a little bit about it in the RLM chat last night when I came in. I was doing my setup on my broadcast. I want you to, again, I'm not into the marijuana thing. I've told you I'm a little bit way concerned about the legalization of it and the trap that all is. But it's a plant, and so I'm always into looking for things that help people. These plants and these things they do won't help all people, so you have to be, everybody specific. Everyone has to make their decisions and do the tests and look. But there's a gentleman who came up with an idea about cannabis. I think it's the CBNs. I hope I get that organization right. A CBN oil that would help because CBN oil addresses neurological conditions. That where the DEA, and I'm speaking to all y'all that do dope and maybe cannabis and do it recreationally or whatever your 420 crowd or not, or just the people that know this stuff actually helps something and are beyond the question. When I'm speaking about this, I'm speaking to the DEA rule that says that CBD oils are going to be regulated out of your control, and why I told you the legalization of it withholds this valuable oil. They already know this. The patents from the United States government tell them this. The patents are owned by the government that says that it's useful, and no one's brought that in as a line item to say that the DEA and the FDA and the government's position on non-medical use of marijuana or cannabis or whatever you want to call the dang stuff is there in the evidence. They've agreed to it in their evidence. They've admitted it's there in the patents. That someone came up with the idea that there's a CBD oil that can affect and stop grand mal seizures. I ran across a video. Ben Swan did it. Watch cannabis nasal spray stop grand mal seizures in its tracks. For those of you that are looking for scientific proof, for those of you legalists that want to see proof, you need to see what this stuff does. in this video. And all I came away with when I saw the video, and I'll take it for the face value that Ben Swan is putting out here. I don't believe him to be someone who is deceptive. All I came away with was that the FDA and the DEA are thugs to put any obstruction on at least this use for these little ones going through these grand mal seizures that we can probably go find a causation for maybe in vaccines. That I want you to see this video. A bit heart-wrenching when you consider there's these little kids, these little babies doing this, young babies doing this, the young kids, they're beyond toddler. They're not talking about causation. They're talking about stopping a grand mal seizure in seconds, folks. And then listen to the effect. Listen to the side effects that don't exist. I want you to see the video to get more information and evidence that you can put on a list somewhere to affect what you know is something that needs to be done, that the system is being allowed through consensus science, through terroristic caucustocracy obstruction of remedies to you for your health under the color of protecting you. You need to see these to get in you beyond a doubt, beyond the need of science, best sciences which are fraud and deception to begin with, that this stuff does something for these people. That when you find out how many little ones now are getting these, it's a crime to not allow it as a use that would support the rule that at least CBD oil can't be outlawed, notwithstanding any other technical obstruction to that. And that these things need to be brought out for people because it was our right to have them, because we come from the land and the land was given to us and the government is supposed to protect that in us. It's not commerce if we can make it ourselves from the land and the right we've done. That's not commerce. It's a pertinent the right in the land that the government was supposed to protect in us. This will be another distinction you'll hear between Eddie Craig looking at commerce, which I agree with, and then where I've gone. The chasm I've found in the law between the thing that they put on you and the thing against what you're actually doing. Again, there's an herb in the world, seems for everything. When you see this, the cannabis oil, this guy in the farm, I can't remember now, there's a name, darn it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. This guy developed this oil. There's evidence that the DEA and the government is wrong about what at least a product from marijuana, an extract from marijuana, can do regarding medicinal factors. As I tell you, that's probably where you're going to have to focus right now. The other stuff I think they're going to try and take out because you haven't been smart to anticipate the legalization and go and push for decriminalization. Get rid of it as a crime. Don't legislate it as a prohibited substance. So this administrative world in life we live in, it needs to be addressed. As I was telling you, that's one more evidence with the CBD oil working grand mal seizure relief. That needs to be brought to that DEA comment, that rulemaking. You need to write that letter. Why can't you do that? It boggles my mind. Any one of you, the most of you in the RLM chat, should be all over that. What's it take to take a few minutes a day to research the subject matter, to find out how you have to do, where to send the notice, write a short sheet letter, 1-2 pages, whatever you feel like. It's like writer's block, folks. You got to get past the block of not doing and start doing. I don't care how many pieces of paper you crumple up and stick in the wastebasket. See, that was the old one. I don't have to crumple up a piece of paper. I got digits. I got digital replications. I can save as many projects I want. I can then come and finalize it, and it doesn't cost me a piece of paper one. Why can't you do that? All the chats and the words I see can be focused on pointing out that the government is oppressing you instead of helping you, as a fiduciary breach against them protecting you instead. That you can't write that down is an amazing thing to me. And I can see line after line after line after line of chat lines that go nowhere. You get rid of the criminality of the possession and use for private needs. That's all you need to do. because it ends up going into administrative processes if you do it otherwise. And you get subject to that state that we all love so much, that has bureaucrats inside that have an opinion of an agenda they want. And yet we start challenging it, and we get things like this to pop out. SEC illegally appoints administrative law judges. I'll give you a link to this. The Securities and Exchange Commission illegally appoints administrative law judges in violation of the Constitution's Appointments Clause to render decisions and impose penalties. The 10th Circuit ruled Tuesday. It will be the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals for Denver. What have I told you about challenging the officers? It's what we did in our lawsuit, is what I'm focused on here. But for this amount, at this point, every officer in government for making a decision has to have a delegation order or an appointment that suffices to meet the constitutional constraints. Otherwise, they are not competent. This court says that the administrative law judges, which are not judges at all, they're bureaucrats with the power to make a decision over a certain subject matter, and certain subject matter area, I'll add, have been appointing administrative law judges contrary to the Constitution. Particularly the Constitution's Appointment Clause is the same position that must be satisfied by any quo warranto demand on any officer or official in the state or the federal, was found to be in violation by the Securities and Exchange Commissions, and those orders by those administrative judges without meeting the Constitutional Appointments Clause are void. It is a question you need to ask everywhere of anybody making a decision. What's your authority to make that decision? Show it to me. And you better know the answer so you know when they're telling you a lie. Is what we did in our lawsuit when I knew the territorial court was going to take on a case that they didn't have competency, and the senior judge and a magistrate judge aren't competent in Article III matters. We knew that going in. Is the same argument that was challenged for the SEC, someone defending himself against an allegation, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and said, your administrative law judges making decisions, they are not in proper appointment, and therefore their rules and decisions are invalid, is something you need to read for here. And I want you to find out, read very carefully, it's not that the SEC doesn't have the right to appoint. It's that when they did the appointments, they didn't do it pursuant to the Constitution. So be careful to say that the SEC can't appoint, at least the way I read this report here. I didn't get to the opinion. So I apologize for the summary review of this and not being able to get into every detail. That I'm having to leave to you. And if I'm incorrect, address that with me. Email markonthebeast@yahoo.com, markonthebeast@yahoo.com. In fact, I'm always open to this new knowledge. Listening to Eddie Craig, I've got to go back and listen very carefully. I want to know what he's talking about. He had enough chapter and verse to tell me and the correct request. I think he's got it. I want to listen to maybe how he lays stuff out. He may lay stuff out. I told you, he already lays it out more chapter and verse. I don't do that so well. I can. I think for me, that's dangerous. I don't put myself out to help anybody directly by writing your paperwork and working diligently. I'll work to help you do your paperwork now, given that it shows up. But most people decide they want to take my words, and I appreciate the enthusiasm. Go and do it yourself. I appreciate the malcontent in you all. I get the emails about that. I do appreciate that. But it's not just about being that malcontent. It's about making that malcontentedness functional. And so this is what I try to bring here all the time. Whether you can hear through that, this tells us that every officer has to be in the office by law. That's why you challenge. When I say you challenge jurisdiction and authority, you're not just challenging the court. You're challenging who sits in the seat of decision. You're challenging, as we did in our court case, we're challenging the lawful establishment of the court itself within which the judge would reside. In other words, if the court that's established that he's operating out of is not constitutionally established for the subject matter, it doesn't matter that he's an Article III court. He's got nowhere to reside. These are the questions that this case points to you, that confirms what I'm telling you, that you have to question authority, authorita at the point of its assertion, and to prove it out that it's authority underneath the objective basis of law that has been gotten away with until someone sued it. Again, crickets allowed it until someone properly attacked it and stopped this. So be careful not to say the SEC can't, because I think the decision was that they could, but they failed to follow the law, and that invalidates everything else behind that decision. Everything else. You got it. I mean, to me, that excites me to see how simply you can destroy the edifice of power, the facade. And that's exactly what they know to protect against and keep you from doing, which is why you have to redouble, triple your efforts to expose that. Why we did a quo warranto. I knew that was going to happen as soon as we put the case in. I'd seen it before. We had the quo warrantos, I think, quicker. We had the quo warrantos filed before they sent us the notice that they were going to transfer the case. Okay, when I'm talking battlefield, you're not wasting around. You understand the game, you know what your mission is, and you accomplish it. Okay, so there's some study behind this. There's a little bit of a work, but it's worth it. It's worth it because now you can start calling these people out and be part of the malcontents that are the menagerie of malcontents that are making it work and making it right, because that's what we are duty bound to do. One more quick thing. The two major credit card reporting agencies have been lying to consumers. For all you all that go and use the system, TransUnion and Equifax have deceived Americans about the reports they provided and the fees they charge. I want you to see this. I think Gary L. put this out. My view on this was, okay, so what was this covering up where they're actually working underneath the skin as front companies for the banks to improperly give you these reports? Not just how they did it, but the one that they're covering up. And I'm assured, although I hope I didn't spring the gun here for you, Gary. I guess he said he's working on a documentary that might very well be boring down on this very, very point. So maybe cool things to come from Gary L. On a documentary. But you've been lied to in your credit agency, which means that your whole credit life, your whole digital life is subject to these liars, folks. These plunderers have got you left and right, and you're standing flat-footed to it all and not setting up an independent collateral monetary system for yourself that we can do weight and measure in, that we're told the Constitution protects. No, you're operating and allowing them to operate like the SEC, allowing administrative law judges that don't have power until they're stopped. You have to stop this. That's the bottom line. I don't know what else to say. I wish it could be a lot easier, but it's not. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope today I said something to inspire you to do something properly. Thank you, Grimner, for all you do and help, and the website, reallibertymedia.com, and with you and over there with Bo Diddy on freedomsnetwork.com. And Grammy Mary for the donations to Spreaker. Appreciate all of that. For more things, folks, we've got lots of places to hear the voices of lots of people, and now Rob works with Smoke and Mirrors and the UCY.TV website. Jules, thank you again for simulcasting and the pastcasts and prodcasts that are done on UCY and the YouTube over there. You might be subscribed over there as well as subscribing to the RLM YouTube account to gain us a higher exposure, I think is what the point is, in the interwebs here to get the word out. I think that's not too much to ask. And terrestrial broadcasters, I always appreciate knowing that you're out there pumping out the information to those that have radios. They may be the only ones that can hear this after a while. So, thank you very much, folks. I'll be here next week. Tech diffs are nature willing.
Well, that's another lesson. I hope with today's information you can take it to those that misbehave. From behind the woodshed, leaving his mark on the beast, this is Hal Anthony. Till next time, journey with purpose.
Up a can of whoop-ass feels like.
Son, you just opened a whole case of whoop-ass.